Welcome to this week's edition of Pit Stop with me, Jaco van der Merwe, and I'm joined by Mark Jones. Now, last week we spoke about one big boy that GWM is bringing into South Africa in the P500 Bakkie. This week we're going straight into the second big boy, which is called Tank 500. Now, explain to us that looking just first glance, anybody who lays eyes on the Tank 500 for the first time, if you hear Tank, you would assume Tank 300. Which is very retro, that off-roady style. Tank 500, not so much. It's almost like a big blingy thing, isn't it?
100%. It's kind of weird. You get the feeling that, as you know, Tank 300 was sort of modeled on something else, which is very how the Chinese do things. And here comes the 500, which it is, the bigger boy. But yeah, it doesn't resemble anything. It looks kind of like a Nissan Patrol meets a bit of Everest. It's got like Mustang-y looking lights. Completely different vehicle, in my opinion.
If that's black, I can see it in the Snoop Dogg video.
100%. It's got the right wheels, those big 20-inch chrome wheels. It's just got to have some sort of rap music going on. It'll be cool.
Well, not that long ago, we were saying, for most manufacturers in South Africa now, but I remember us saying the first Hyundai with a 7-figure price tag. Big thing when it was the Palisade coming in, I think.
Yes.
Now we're sitting with GWM, which is one of the Chinese manufacturers that's been relying on an attractive price for getting the bulk of their volume out in the Joliens and the H6s and all of that. And now we're sitting at a GWM, which comes in at 1.22 million, which is, I think some people will struggle getting their heads around that number. Saying it's a GWM, shouldn't that be a Mercedes or a BMW?
Yeah, it's. We touched on it briefly off air. There's all this like Chinese politics around subsidies and whatever, and GWM is not Chinese owned, so they don't have all this benefit of huge subsidies. So they pay kind of an importer price. So, yeah, they're gambling at 1.2 million. Again, if you look at it, it's kind of where an Everest would play. They did say they were chasing a Fortuner kind of owner simply because they don't believe for a moment, and I think it's spot on, they're not going to get a Prada owner or an LC300 owner to ditch their Toyota for this. I don't care how close the pricing goes. So they're hoping to look at an Everest guy who likes a lot of spec or somebody who's undecided. But it's a chunk of change.
And like the P500, and should I say, power-wise, should I say that's the one thing the Tank 300 and 500 does have in common, and that's the powertrain. Just tell us about that. That's the hybrid setup.
Yeah, so it's a petrol hybrid, 2-litre petrol hybrid with an electric motor powered by a battery. It's not a mild hybrid 48-volt little starter system thing. It's a genuine hybrid. It's not plug-in. You've got to get used to all these hybrid terms. But it's charged by the car. So you can have a little electric mode, but it's only up to like 20 k's an hour. So it's a bit pointless. But it has regen, and when the battery's charged up, you can use a lot of it. So that, in essence, is 180 kilowatts, I think 380 newton meters without it. And then it's 255, 648 or 644 with the electric battery assistance, which is substantial.
And I would guess it's quite heavy too, like the P5.
It's not 2.6 tons like the Bakkie. It's not a light vehicle. Although, ironically, for me, and I don't know if it was maybe just steering, or you got various modes on the steering, by the way. You can have comfort, sport, so you can play with the electronic feel of the steering, which feels electronic, which some people will not like, but the average driver would know the difference. But you do feel it. Ironically, the seating position at SUV is a bit lower, so you sit a bit more comfortable in the back here, a bit higher. And the suspension's more compliant. It just felt more nimble. It just felt a little bit. You don't feel the weight of the Tank 500 as much as I felt it in the P500. So for an SUV, I had no complaints. I thought it kind of did exactly what every other SUV I've driven felt like.
Fuel consumption, did you have a chance to look at it? I remember in the P500, you said they claimed just under 10. You, at times, got about 15 litres per 100 kilometres.
Yeah, it doesn't change. Sadly, I don't know what it is. It's a Chinese thing, and I say it with respect because everybody else seems to get this a bit right. But when we drove that thing, honestly, just driving normal, not hammering it, we were high 14s all the time. It was just what it was. Then we're told, yeah, but put it in eco mode, a lot of coasting down the hills. But if you're going to buy a 1.2 million rand SUV with 250 kilowatts and 600 odd Newton meters of torque, then only to forever use it in eco mode on electricity, you got to go, what's the point? I think the best, and there was a lot of sort of open road, very mild driving. We got hard 12s. We were told it can go in the 10s. We'll have to get it on test and really try the whole come off the highway, use the electric assistance. But I don't believe, like with Tank 300, I don't believe that car's going to get near claimed. And it's going to be a bit of an Achilles heel once again for somebody who's going to be paying a lot of money to fill that thing, and you're not getting a lot of range.
Of course, all of these fuel consumption, it's numbers we're mentioning, it's very early observations in the car's life cycle. I remember with the Tank 300, that's what they told us too. Just remember, you were on the launch of that one too. Just remember, it's early in the life cycle, it will come down. We, unfortunately, our observation from the Tank on test was also a bit high. It was in the 14s, and I managed to take the Tank from Joburg, Randburg to the East Rand, and I nursed it. I don't think I went over 100 on the highway, which was a bit painful. And I think I got it to dip just below the 10, just because I could do it. But like you say, you're sitting with that enormous power, and you're telling your mates about this power, but you're going like Miss Daisy on the highway.
Yeah, it is a problem, but some would argue, and I mean, I'm sure GWM will be jumping up and down and going, listen, stop being stupid. Fuel consumption is one thing and it is expensive, but hey, stop that now. Look at what the thing offers. And there you've got to start saying, whoa, 7-seater, tons of space, lots of tech, lots of luxury. I mean, if you think the P500 had everything going on, the Tank 500's got that and even more. So they're kind of going, calm down, look at what it offers.
Okay, so you say direct rivals is more or less the way they put it, the Everest and the Fortuner.
Yeah.
We're not going to go any higher in the food chain than that.
I don't think so.
I mean, the Everest is as high as Ford can go anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, you're not getting a guy out of his Cruiser or his Prado. That's never happening. So, yeah, again, I think they're concentrating on the middle of the guy that wants a lot of tech and spec, and we say it with respect. GWM is like South Africa's #1, tried and tested Chinese importer. They've been here the longest.
And they say they've never left. They pride themselves
they have a good
on
footprint, and they really have. I mean, in all due respect to them, credit where credit is due, they have sort of backed that up. So if you're going to spend R1 million on a Chinese car, that's not a bad start. We've got a lot of influx on Chinese vehicles now recently, but I don't see a business model. If you're only going to sell 50 of a car out of your entire brand at the moment, how are you going to survive? Are those guys going to be here in 5 years' time? I would bet GWM will be here, but I'm not so sure they will be. So, yeah, they have a lot going on.
That's a very good point. That was all from us this week. Once we get that Tank 500 on test, we will put the fuel consumption a bit more to the test. Of course, it still won't be properly run in. The fleet managers will probably tell us, but we can at least live with it for a week and say, what did it do in the school run, coming to work, or all of that type of stuff.
And of course, concentrate and appreciate, because I think that's important. It really is luxurious. I mean, it has a lot going on. So I think if we're fair to the brand, look at that. Fuel will be an issue. And of course, I think the styling is fairly decisive. You look at it and you go, you like the bling or you don't like the bling. Those big wheels, it'll work for some. It's very Nissan Patrol-ish at the back, or it won't. But overall, I think, in a market that's not as tough as the bakkie market, the SUV market, which is smaller, but people are a little less loyal maybe, they could move a few.
Very good point. As soon as we get that Tank 500 on test, we will come back on the show and talk about it. That was all from us for this week. I'm Jaco van der Merwe. I was joined by Mark Jones. And if you like the podcast, please go and like it. You can choose to share it or follow the Citizens YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Cheers.